The madness of March is upon us. The snakes have once again been driven out of Ireland by our favorite saint, and we are well on our way to finish the semester strong. Before we start the video, I wanted to revisit the college-wide late policy that some of you are either not aware of, not happy with, or are just ignoring altogether. The English departments of the 4 campuses of Delaware Technical Community College set forth a cohesive late policy which all instructors in that department must follow. For the smaller assignments, also known as formative assessments, you have up to 48 hours to turn that assignment in for a late penalty of a 10% hit to your final grade for that assignment. And that's 10% of the total points, not 10% of what you earned. For the larger assignments, also known as the summative assessments, you have up to 1 week to turn it in for a late penalty of a 15% hit to your final grade for that assignment. And again, that's 15% of the total points, not 15% of what you've earned. The reason why the summative assessments have 1 week and the formative only have 48 hours is because the summative assessments are larger, more complex, and are worth more. We obviously want you to spend more time on them and understand that they are more important, okay? Now, since I was very clear about this from the very first video that you should have watched for this course, I wanted to remind you that this isn't a new policy. Sorry to bring you down so early in the video, but it needed to be said. Now that we've gotten that reviewed, let's talk about what's going on this week, shall we? As always, here's a reminder that I published a very detailed announcement every week to show you what needs to be done and how to get there. Please read it. As you can see here, I've got my opening ideas, I've got the video linked here, I've got the video chapter listings right here, I've got what to look forward to, I've got what to do this week, I've got to do what is due, and then any attachments that you need to see are listed at the very bottom. Okay, the announcements are important. If an announcement isn't your thing, however, going back to the main page and then rolling over here to the right, you can see the View the Course Schedule. 102 Masterclass Schedule, clicking on that, you will go right to this page. Now, I have already preset it, so we are starting at where we're supposed to start, the beginning of Unit 3, which is Week 6. Okay, now, since we're starting Unit 3 this week, there's a bit more reading than usual. But it's building up to your base theory behind what is coming. So we have 4 items to review, not remove, and 2 real assignments to complete, okay? Including the very important Unit 2 essay and an organizer that builds into Unit 3. Because I have a feeling that this is going to be a rather long video, I'm sorry, let's just get started. Starting here with what is an argumentative research paper. You know, it's the first document which shows you, well, you guessed it, what an argumentative research paper is. This is your biggie, folks. It's going to be by far worth the most points of anything this semester, and the first 2 papers built towards this. It's not due for a little while, but it's good to start thinking about it now. Once again, the details you need are here, but you know what? I have a secondary document which I believe does the job much more accurately and succinctly. So you can look at the cute little picture here that actually does nothing. Hey, look, if I click on this, it tells me it's an introduction. If I click on this, it tells me it's a conclusion. Or rebuttal, sorry, the conclusion's down here. Honestly, it's not really telling you anything. It's just a pretty picture that somebody thought was cute. But what we have here, you can look at the argumentative research paper sample. It'll tell you the requirements and so forth here. And like I said, I've got it on all in one document, which will be a little bit easier to follow. But you can take a look at the requirements here too, if that makes it you feel better. Or you can go back to the main announcement, click on the attachment that says Unit 3 Directions and Sample, and see this gorgeous document here. Okay? So I've got everything you're going to need here, the overview, the objectives, the requirements, which I will take a second and go over just to remind you. Not this paper that's due this week, but the final paper for the semester will be 7 to 8 pages. This one's only 4 to 6 that's due this week, right? But 7 to 8 pages. You'll need to find 3 additional sources. Now, you found 2 in Unit 1, 2 in Unit 2, and now 3 more in Unit 3. That means you're going to have a minimum of 7 sources to work with. It's got to be APA formatted, double-spaced, Times New Roman, Calibri, 12-point font, correctly formatted title page, page numbers, repeated titles, and so forth. Make sure that you are following CSET, okay? Use only the third-person point of view. That means that I do not want to see I, me, my, our, we. I do not want to see you or your. That's right here. Avoid all that, okay? And then down here, it tells you what each section is supposed to be about. An introduction, which is going to be a single paragraph. A background, which is going to be a minimum of 1 paragraph. Most of you will stay to 1 paragraph, but some of you might have a very detailed topic. And you might need to give us a little bit more information, which will necessitate a second or maybe even a third background paragraph. Then you're going to have your argument itself. It's going to be a minimum of 3 reasons using CSET. Okay, you're going to be using your claim, your setup, your evidence, your tie-in. 3 times minimum. Each paragraph should reflect 1 claim. So if you have 6 claims, you'll have 6 paragraphs. Many of you will stop at 3. Okay, not my first choice, but if that's where you're going to go, that's where you're going to go. Then in a few weeks, we're going to talk about counter-argument and rebuttal. The counter-argument will be 1 section, the rebuttal will be another section. These will not be in the same paragraph. You will probably have 2 counter-arguments, which means 2 counter-argument paragraphs. You will probably have 2 rebuttals, which means 2 rebuttal paragraphs. And then you will finally have a conclusion. So if I had to tell you right now how many paragraphs this was, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I would say a minimum of 10 paragraphs, okay? All right. And then once you get through this, you can scroll down to the 3rd page where the actual sample starts. You can see we have the page number up here, and then we start on the title page, okay? Everything is here that you need to see, including the section headers, which some of you forget every time, and I don't know why. But everything you need is right here. Again, it's got to be 7 to 8 pages. You need a minimum of 3 claims. Now, this sample actually shows you 4 claims. And then we have our counter argument, we have our rebuttal, we have our conclusion, and then we have every source that we used within the making of the paper. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, wait! 8. There it is. So, take a look at this. Let me know if you have any questions leading into the 3rd essay. Now, going back to this page, I just want to remind you that it's very important. We're going to be starting that this week. So, start looking at the bits and pieces so you're not doing it all the night before it's due, okay? So, after seeing your future, we can go back to the actual schedule, and we can click on what a classical argument is right here by going to this page. Okay, basically, there are 2 videos here. This page is garbage because all it's doing is showing you 2 videos. I mean, seriously? It's like watching a YouTube clip. Basically, I want to try to explain it to you. An argument is not just 2 or more people yelling at each other, throwing things, kicking things over, screaming and hollering, spitting at each other. An argument is multiple perspectives on a single topic. It also requires support for each side, or else we're looking at simple assertions which become more than just the understanding of the argument that you're used to seeing. You know, I'm right, you're wrong. No, I'm right, you're wrong. And then comes the finger pointing, the yelling, the kicking, the spitting, the throwing. That's what most people picture because that's what we're shown on television, much like this. Argument itself, though, it features a few key elements that you need to know. An argument always begins with a thesis, the statement that can be proven true or false. Once the thesis is stated, then the person stating that thesis has to prove that the thesis is existing. It's not just a matter of saying, this is what I believe, so disprove me. Because that's actually a logical fallacy known as the burden of proof. Remember all those movies and TV shows that you watched whenever scenes took place in a courtroom? The prosecution has to prove the point. They cannot just state an idea and hope everyone else does the work for them. It's the same thing here. Once you state that you have a thesis, you must provide solid evidence to break down that thesis into smaller claims that you can use to prove the entire idea. You'll need at least 3 smaller claims to show how your side of the argument is the stronger side. Once you develop your side, it must be open to the prospect that your opponent, or the other side of the argument if you don't want to view this as an adversarial thing, has at least 1 or 2 good points of their own. So the counter-argument will be their opportunity to illustrate the opposing side to your thesis. Since you will not be team writing this paper, you will have to provide both your argument and the counter-argument, which means that you must be fair and complete with the opposing side. Additionally, you also have to support that opposing side, which means showing how, in some cases, your original side might be a bit weak. Once you go through the counter-argument, then you can provide the rebuttal. This is where you can show your reader how the counter-argument, while possibly having a couple of good points, is nowhere strong enough to overwhelm your original argument. Because, honestly, if it did, you may want to rethink your original approach. Overall, the basics of an argument are pretty similar all throughout the world and even throughout the last few, millennia. We really haven't thought about changing how arguments are done because it's worked so well since a few hundred years BC when it was first formalized. The next page, the qualities of a good research question, is probably one of my most favorite pages made for the class because I don't have really any issues with it. In order to move forward with our paper, we need to have a solid direction for our research, which begins with our research question. So how do we create it? Well, by looking at this page. You can look at it more in depth, but I want you to remember that a good question is not opinion, and a good question can actually be answered using solid research. So here, it can be answered in an objective way through research, at least partially for now. That means you can't just ask a question that comes down to your thoughts or your beliefs. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I don't care what you think. I don't care what you feel. I don't care what you believe. I care what you can prove. Everybody has thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. But not everybody can prove those. If you can provide support, objective support, that other people can look up and see, you're providing solid source material. A good research question can be answered using existing information or a collection of information. That means you can't just say, eventually it's going to be proven that we're not alone in the universe. That doesn't matter. We're going to be long dead. Tell me what can be proven now. A good research question hasn't already been answered, or hasn't been answered completely, or hasn't been answered for your specific context. I can't tell you how many people want to write about things that they already know have been proven. Even this semester, I have gotten students who want to write about the fact that they think the earth is flat. No, it's not. It was proven several thousand years ago by the Greeks. We live on an oblate spheroid. That is science. It cannot be disproven. You also cannot argue that smoking is bad for you. We know that. That's been obvious for decades and decades. That's like proving the sky is blue or the grass is green. We already know it. You can't do it, okay? So come up with good research questions that will lead you into different directions. Finally, the last document is research questions and search term tips. Pop. This shows you an easy step to move from your research questions to your claims, and you can prove them within your argument. It's not as simple as a loss of 1 or 2 words. There are a few shifts in thinking to worry about as well. So look through this page and see the examples given, as I've found it's a lot easier to do this than explain this. So it's not just why should violence against animals be illegal, but changing it to animal cruelty should be punished just as harshly as violence done against humans, because why? Tell me that. What legal actions have been taken against people who have committed violence towards animals? There are various legal actions that can be taken against those who commit such violence, such as. Add that clause at the end to really underline the ideas, okay? So you can go through and take a look at the search terms and the keywords. EBSCOhost, they actually can show you where all the different synonyms are that you can look at, as well as SIRS. So they're all right there under the contents and viewpoints and so forth, okay? Perfect. Whew. That's a lot. I knew this video would be a long one. Sorry. Like I said at the beginning, we have 2 assignments due this week. Now, the assignments are for the Unit 2 paper, right here, and the building research questions for Unit 3. Easy, right? In any case, clicking on that will bring us to the comparative research essay. Now, we have already reviewed this several times, so I won't belabor the point. I do want to show you, however, what the main ideas are so you won't screw it up, okay? So, go through this. Make sure that you follow the sample document. Now, there's some things that are not here that should be. So we have the comparative research essay directions and samples. And like I said, there are a couple of things here that I want to see. So make sure that you go through and double check all of this. We have our single paragraph introduction. We have our background. We have our comparing perspectives section. We have our exploratory synthesis section and our conclusion, okay? So going through this, we have to have our section headers, the background information, which introduces the 2 articles with their authors and years, comparing perspectives. This is where a lot of people screw up. There should be a minimum of 2 points that you are bringing up. 1 point goes in 1 paragraph, and as you can see, new paragraph, here's our second point. It is not a single paragraph, okay? We mention Gershoff, which is the first article, and Perry, which is the second article, in the same paragraph to express that single point. Down here, we mention Gershoff and we mention Perry, again, for the second point, okay? 2 paragraphs, 2 points. Then we get into our synthesis. Please notice that this synthesis is pretty well developed. It is not a stubby little paragraph that everybody thinks can just check off a box. I am looking for your thoughts. I am looking for your critical ideas. Make sure this is well spoken and using your personal ideas. Now, this essay, if we go back up, you can see that you may use the first person, I or me, in the exploratory synthesis paragraph only. Don't use second person at all. So when I go back down to the exploratory synthesis, you will see I have, I can't, I had, I still had, my opinion. That's all perfectly fine. Kind of short conclusion, and then we have the 2 sources that we used. Spoiler alert, if you used multiple sources on top of this, you may use them, but you have to list them in your references. Anything used in your paper has to go in your references. Please make sure that you follow this formatting correctly. Too many people lose too many points and then they complain about it because they didn't read it carefully enough. Please go through it. If you have any questions, email me. Now, the other assignment is the Unit 3 Building Research Questions and Reasons Graphical Organizer. And here it is. Now, the sample that they show you kind of shows what it would look like without an organizer. I, however, have provided you an organizer which you can access here or here. It's the exact same link. And clicking on it will bring this beautiful thing up, okay? Once again, tell me what your general topic is and your thesis question. I don't know why I still haven't changed that. It's not the Unit 1 Literature Review, it's the Unit 1 Exploratory Essay. But, what is your thesis question, okay? And it should be Unit 2 Comparative Research Essay, which you just wrote. Research questions. Tell me 4 research questions according to that page we just went over. Remember the 3 rules of research questions? Come up with them. Don't ask me closed questions. Don't ask me questions like, how much money is being set aside for border control? We can find that out very easily. That's not a good research question. But why does the government prioritize this over this in 2025. Okay, that's something we can look up. That's something that we can argue a lot more, okay? What is the tentative position on your topic? Tentative means to start, temporary. So what are you kind of thinking about now? It doesn't have to stay that way, but what are you thinking now? Then explain to me why your position is strong through 4 because clauses. I feel that my position and my argument is strong because all of the statistics point towards a direct correlation between blah, 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 blah. Because all of the world-renowned experts on the field agree with this. Because, don't just say, because I have numbers. Because the pictures are pretty. I want something more, okay? And then finally, understanding my audience, I want you to explain to me, number 1, what you think your reader, which is me, versus your overall presentation audience, which will be your peers, think about your topic. How do you believe most of your audience, wow, there's a bunch of typos, feels about this topic? Okay, great. What do you believe that most people think about your topic? Now, don't be afraid to write down here, most people don't care about my topic. Most people have never heard of my topic. That's fine. Be honest, okay? What knowledge do you believe people might need to have in order to understand your topic? And honestly, what knowledge do you believe your audience will need to grasp the fundamentals of your topic, you know? That's going to be helpful too. So take your time and go through this. If you do it correctly, this should take you roughly an hour, okay? A lot of you are going to speed through it in about 15 minutes and it's going to show. But if you take your time and really think about it, it's only going to strengthen your Unit 3 paper. And that's the video, folks. Just a shade over 3 full pages of script and over 22 minutes long. As you and your Unit 2 paper are finished, you'll be happy. Get it done. I hope you had a great weekend, and I hope you have a great week ahead. See ya.